Flora was in England, and the only other person, and I really took a lot of courage because she was the 7th grade teacher in the junior department. I mean, I had the whole Methodist church corrupted. And it was all because of the children, they brought it on. But I invited Mildred to my house. Mildred was the closest person to a saint that I have ever known in my life. She was so loving to everybody, so unjudgmental. And she could see the good in everybody and everything, but I wasn't so sure that she would see this because although the Methodist Church was a little bit more liberal than the Baptist Church, it probably would not have gone along with this. So I invited her to my home for lunch. And I explained to her what had been going on. And I gave her a pad and a pencil, and we're sitting across the kitchen table. And I'm sitting there saying a silent prayer. And her pen, she said, "Carolyn, the hairs on my arms are standing on end." And I looked down, so are mine. Hers is writing right away, and you could even read it. Mine starts out as squiggles and then turns into words, and Mildred picks up the pen the first time, and there she goes. And I thought, wow. And during this time, Mildred and I began to exchange whatever we received in our writing every morning on the telephone. That was like the news of the day. What did you receive? What did you receive? And she had a sister in North Carolina. Her name was Hattie. I thought she was elderly at the time, but now I don't. But she was very ill and not expected to live. And so Mildred said in the morning that she had received a message from Hattie, that Hattie had crossed over, and she was explaining how beautiful it was, and the people that she saw and the welcoming. And she said she didn't want to come back, but the kids had prayed for her to heal, and she had wished that they hadn't. But that was in part of that isn't in it. She just described heaven, and Mildred was assured that any minute she would receive the telephone call, and Hattie would have passed over. But it didn't happen. Hattie ripped out all of the life-preserving things, the breathing things, the breathing apparatus, all ripped them out, and everybody just, okay, this is her time, we'll let it take its course. But she didn't. She got better. So Mildred and I are questioning the writing then. Why did you receive this? And because it wasn't true, because Hattie lived. But Mildred went to a family reunion, and Hattie took her to a side and said, "Mildred, I can only tell you this because nobody will believe it. But when I was in the hospital and so sick, I died and I saw heaven." I asked Mildred if Hattie would write me a letter and tell me all about it. Back then in the 70s, I had never heard of a near-death experience, nor had anyone else I knew of. And this was the first time I had ever known anybody to go to heaven with a round-trip ticket. And I have her letter is contained in my book, and it's beautiful. She's a lovely lady, not well-educated, but very sincere, and her letter comes across as such. And then finally, Flora comes back. And while she was in England, she started trying to do automatic writing. Unfortunately, I think she chose the wrong place because she was in a pub with her aunt. And so when she started to write, and we were working together, I would go to her house or she mine, and we would sit across the table, we would say a little prayer, and then we would let the pen go. Well, she received drawings. Whoops, did I go one too many? She received drawings. This was the first one of the ship. It had a little bit of writing on it, But she had no idea what that was going to be until after she looked at it. And then she got this one of the child in the carriage, and the messages were not uplifting like mine. And then one day she was doing it with her husband across the table, and she said she sat there, and it seemed like hours and hours and hours, and this pen is just going all over the place. And she said, "It's not making any sense." And he said, "Don't stop, Flora. You're drawing upside down." And when she turned it around, that's what she saw. And Flora and I then, Flora, Mildred and I, although Mildred was working full time, so she didn't have as much time as Flora and I had to spend on this. One day when I was at Flora's, and we were talking about what is truth, because, I mean, everywhere I went, there was some kind of conflicting thing that said this is true and then this is true, and yet they both can't be true. And it was that the strongest desire to know what truth is, and I received this poem. Truth haunts us like a beautiful song written long ago, music of a forgotten past and a life we used to know. We've shrouded her in veils of doubt, and so she walks in scorn. With ridicule her companion, we neither weep nor mourn. She comes so close and yet so far as we see her pass us by, for in the blindness of our mind, we mistake her for a lie.